Hourglass. This is the shape most frequently referenced in fashion and media, and it is defined by one specific characteristic above everything else. The shoulders and hips are roughly equal in width, and the waist pulls in significantly between them, creating a curved, balanced silhouette. The definition comes not just from fat distribution, but from the underlying bone structure of the shoulders and pelvis. Women with a true hourglass shape tend to gain weight proportionally, meaning both the upper and lower body fill out at roughly the same rate. This keeps the waist-to-hip ratio relatively consistent even as overall size changes. The hourglass is often treated as the default beauty standard in Western media, but it is actually one of the less common shapes in the general population. Many women who identify with this shape are actually closer to a pear or rectangle with a defined waist, which is why understanding the specific proportions matters. Pear. The pear shape, sometimes called the triangle, is one of the most common female body shapes worldwide, and it is directly connected to how estrogen influences fat storage in the female body. Women with this shape carry most of their weight below the waist, in the hips, thigh, and buttocks, while the upper body, particularly the shoulders and chest, remains noticeably narrower. This fat distribution pattern is actually considered metabolically protective. Fat stored in the lower body, below the waist, is subcutaneous rather than visceral, meaning it sits under the skin rather than around the organs. Research consistently shows that pear-shaped women tend to have lower rates of heart disease and type 2 diabetes compared to women who store fat primarily in the midsection. The challenge this shape creates is mostly practical, finding clothing that fits both the hip and waist simultaneously, which is where understanding proportions becomes genuinely useful. Rectangle. The rectangle, also called the straight or banana shape, is characterized by shoulders, waist, and hips that are all close in measurement with very little definition at the waist. There is no dramatic curve pulling the midsection inward. This shape is common in women with lower overall body fat and less hormonal fat redistribution, and it is also frequently seen in athletes whose training has built balanced muscle across the entire body. The rectangle is not a sign of being underweight or unfeminine. It is simply a structural proportion where the body carries itself in a more linear silhouette. Women with this shape often find that weight gain distributes evenly across the entire body, rather than concentrating in one specific zone, which means the overall shape stays relatively consistent across different body sizes. Apple. The apple shape, sometimes called the round or oval shape, is defined by a wider midsection relative to the hips and shoulders. The waist carries the most volume, while the legs and arms tend to remain proportionately slimmer. This shape is more common after hormonal shifts, particularly during and after menopause, when the body redistributes fat from the hips and thighs toward the abdominal area. Apple-shaped women carry a higher proportion of visceral fat, the deep internal fat that surrounds the organs, which is why this body shape is associated with a higher risk of metabolic conditions, including insulin resistance and cardiovascular disease. This does not mean the shape itself is inherently unhealthy, but it does mean that health monitoring around blood pressure, blood sugar, and waist circumference is particularly relevant for women who carry weight primarily in the midsection. Inverted triangle. The inverted triangle shape is defined by shoulders that are noticeably wider than the hips, creating a silhouette that capers downward rather than outward. This shape is common among women who have broader skeletal frames in the shoulder and chest area, and it is also frequently developed through athletic training that builds significant upper body muscle, particularly in the back, shoulders, and chest. Swimmers are a commonly cited example. The waist may or may not be defined, depending on the individual, but the defining characteristic is always the width differential between the upper and lower body. Women with this shape are often described as athletic or powerful in build, and clothing choices that balance the silhouette by adding volume to the lower half tend to create the most proportional appearance. Spoon. The spoon shape is similar to the pear, but with one important distinction. In a spoon shape, the hips are not just wider than the shoulders, they are dramatically wider, often with a visible shelf-like quality to the hip structure and a very defined small waist sitting above them. The upper body tends to be quite narrow and the lower body quite full, creating a pronounced contrast between the two halves. This shape is strongly influenced by pelvic bone structure rather than fat distribution alone, which is why it remains relatively consistent even with significant changes in body weight. The spoon is less commonly discussed than the pear or hourglass, but is a genuinely distinct shape that sits somewhere between the two in terms of its proportions. Diamond. The diamond shape is characterized by wider hips than shoulders, a fuller midsection, and narrower shoulders that taper above. Unlike the apple, where the fullness centers primarily at the waist, the diamond shape carries volume across both the midsection and the hip area, with the widest point sitting somewhere between the two. The shoulders and lower legs tend to be the slimmest parts of the body. This shape often appears during midlife hormonal transitions, when fat redistributes from purely lower body storage toward a combination of mid and lower body storage. Women with this shape often find that both the upper and lower halves need to be considered simultaneously when approaching clothing fit or fitness goals. Oval. The oval shape, sometimes described as a softer version of the apple, is defined by a rounded midsection that carries the most volume of the body, with the bust, hips, and shoulders all sitting in relatively close proportion to one another. The silhouette as a whole is rounder and softer rather than angular or dramatically curved. Unlike the apple, where the midsection is clearly the widest point, the oval shape has a more uniform, rounded quality across the entire torso. This shape is common across a wide range of body sizes and tends to become more pronounced with age and hormonal change. The absence of a strongly defined waist is the central characteristic, and the overall silhouette tends to be softer and more circular when viewed from the front.